When we think about choosing a partner today, we imagine preference, attraction, and personal freedom. In the ancient world, none of that came first. Marriage was not about love, it was about survival. In early societies, choosing a partner was rarely an individual decision, it was a collective one. Families chose, clans approved, communities observed. A marriage was not the union of two people. It was the fusion of two bloodlines, two households, two futures. Love, if it came, arrived later. The primary question was never, do they love each other? It was, will this union keep us alive? Life was fragile. Disease spread easily. Food was uncertain. Violence was common. A partner was not chosen for romance, but for strength, reliability, and reputation. A man was judged by his ability to provide land, livestock, skill. A woman was judged by her family name, her health, and her capacity to bear children. This may sound harsh to modern ears, but in a world without safety nets, marriage was the safety net. Families watched everything: how a young man worked, how a young woman behaved, how both responded to pressure. Nothing went unnoticed. A careless reputation could destroy future prospects. There were no private lives. Villages were small. Everyone knew everyone, and everyone remembered. Most partnerships were arranged early, sometimes when children were still young. Not because parents were cruel, but because timing mattered. A family needed alliances before crisis arrived, not after. Marriage secured peace between households. It stabilized inheritance. It ensured care for the elderly. In many cultures, refusal was not an option. Individual desire was secondary to communal stability. This did not mean people were emotionless. It meant emotions were not trusted to guide decisions that affected entire families. In the ancient world, choosing a partner was not about finding happiness, it was about avoiding catastrophe. And that single difference changes everything about how relationships worked. In the next section, we'll look at how families negotiated these unions, what was exchanged, what was promised, and what happened when those promises were broken. Once a potential match was identified, the process moved beyond observation. Negotiation began. Marriage in the ancient world was a contract, long before it was a ceremony. Families met, terms were discussed, agreements were made. What was exchanged was not affection, but security. One of the most important elements was the bride price. This was not payment for a woman. It was compensation to her family. A daughter represented years of labor. Water carried, fields worked, animals tended. Losing her meant losing economic stability. The bride price acknowledged that loss: livestock, silver, land, or future service. The exact form depended on the culture, but the meaning was the same. This union has value. Promises were made publicly. Witnesses mattered. Words spoken in front of others could not be denied later. A broken agreement damaged more than reputation. It damaged trust between families, and trust was everything. In many societies, the bride herself had little or no voice in the arrangement, but this did not mean she was irrelevant. Her behavior before marriage could elevate or destroy negotiations. Modesty, discipline, skill. These were assets. A woman known for wisdom or diligence could strengthen her family's position. A man, too, was evaluated closely. His work ethic, his temper, his loyalty. A strong alliance required stability on both sides. Once terms were agreed, the partnership was sealed through betrothal. This was not engagement as we know it. Betrothal was legally binding. Breaking it required formal separation, sometimes even punishment. From that moment on, the couple was considered joined even if they did not yet live together. This period could last months or years, time used to prepare a home, resources, food, clothing. Marriage was not rushed. It was staged carefully because failure carried consequences that lasted generations. Choosing a partner did not end with agreement. It began a chain reaction that reshaped families, property, and future children not yet born. In the next section, we'll look at age, timing, and what daily life looked like once a union became permanent. In the ancient world, age was not a number tied to emotion. It was a measure of readiness. People married young, very young by modern standards. Girls were often betrothed shortly after puberty. Boys married once they could provide. This was not driven by desire. It was driven by reality. Life expectancy was short. Disease was constant. Death was familiar. Delaying marriage meant risking extinction of the family line. A household needed children early, not later. Once married, life changed immediately. There was no transition period, no honeymoon. Responsibilities began the same day. A woman moved into her husband's household or into a space prepared by his family. She became part of a new lineage. Her identity shifted overnight. Daily life revolved around work, grinding grain, drawing water, cooking, spinning wool, caring for animals. A man worked the land, maintained tools, protected property, and represented the family publicly. Marriage was not private. It was visible. Neighbors watched, relatives intervened, elders advised. Conflict was rarely hidden. Privacy was a luxury few could afford. Children arrived quickly. They were not optional. They were essential. They provided labor. They ensured inheritance. They cared for parents in old age. A marriage without children was seen as incomplete, sometimes even tragic. This pressure shaped relationships deeply. Love existed, but it grew under strain. Affection was forged through endurance, not romance. Shared hunger, shared loss, shared responsibility. What held marriages together was not passion, but dependence. Two people survived better than one. Families survived better than individuals. In this world, marriage was not a personal milestone. It was a survival mechanism, refined over generations. In the final section, we'll look at how loyalty, honor, and faith shaped relationships, and what happened when those bonds were broken. Once a partnership was formed, it was expected to endure, not because happiness was guaranteed, but because stability was sacred. Marriage was tied directly to honor. A faithful spouse preserved the family's standing. A disloyal one endangered everyone connected to them. In tightly bound communities, betrayal did not remain private. It spread. A broken marriage could fracture alliances, divide property, and ignite long-lasting feuds. This is why loyalty carried such weight. Faith also played a central role. Marriage was not only a social agreement, but a moral one. Many ancient cultures believed that divine forces watched these unions closely. Blessings were expected for faithfulness. Disaster was feared for betrayal. This belief shaped behavior. Promises were not casual, they were sacred. When relationships failed, the consequences were severe. Separation often meant economic ruin, especially for women. A woman without family protection was vulnerable. This is why widows and the abandoned appear so frequently in ancient texts. They represented the most fragile members of society. Yet, despite the rigidity, there was also resilience. Couples adapted, families forgave, communities intervened. Survival required flexibility, even within strict systems. What emerges from this world is not a story of romance, but of endurance. Partnerships were built to withstand famine, loss, and uncertainty. Love, when it appeared, was not a spark. It was a fire slowly maintained, fed by shared labor, shared faith, and shared survival. Understanding how people chose partners in the ancient world forces us to rethink relationships entirely, not as expressions of self, but as commitments to something larger: family, community, continuity. This was how humanity endured long before modern freedom existed, and it explains why ancient relationships, though harsh by today's standards, were remarkably resilient. They were built not to satisfy desire, but to preserve life itself,